guys, welcome to the Sandro Linux Community Podcast. It is the 22nd of March 2024. It is, of course, only a couple weeks until Easter. So we have plenty of news to cover today, guys. And the first story we are going in with is the Epic Games Store coming to Android. So, of course, we've seen recently more app stores, more companies deciding to go in with their own app stores on Android, and of course, with the antitrust action against Apple, there have been some, there's been stuff to do with app stores in the EU. So, if you have an iPhone in the EU, then more third-party app stores could potentially be open to you soon. But this is actually something affecting Android here. So the Epic Games Store is actually coming to Android. So this is official from Epic Games. So they announced this on Twitter. So this isn't some sort of rumor. This isn't speculation here. This is actually verified. And, Android for a very long time now has had these third-party app stores. They've never really got the traction that the Google Play Store has. Of course, Google does have an advantage with the fact that Android is their platform. They do develop the Android platform. So really, they do have that advantage. However, of course, there is the Samsung App Store, the Huawei App Store, and if you're in China or some other markets, then you might not even be able to get the Google Play Store to start with. So if you're in certain markets, that is a sort of reason you would have to use a third-party app store. But in Western countries, where the Google Play Store is allowed, it is the predominant app store on Android. However, Epic Games have decided to bring their own app store to the Android market. And of course, I wonder how many ordinary people who aren't really interested in technology will actually decide to go for this game store, and how many people will decide that it isn't worth the hassle, or whether, some of Epic Games' titles might be able to tempt people to actually download this app, or if the having to download it through a web browser might put people off. Also, there are a number of warnings when you actually try to download a store on Android through your web browser. It tells you this might not be safe, blah, 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 blah. And of course, that does put some people off. However, this is an interesting play from Epic here, because of course, they aren't a big friend of Google or Apple, and they do want to be able to take their own cut here, instead of having Google take that 25% cut off them. Do you have any thoughts, Piggis, on this story?
Yeah, I wonder, weren't there like talks about them removing their games from the current game stores? From the current store?
Yeah, there have been talks about stuff like that for a while, I think, right? Or is that a sort of ongoing thing? Is that like something that's been more recently talked about? I haven't really been following that one.
Mm.
What?
I
Yeah.
feel like it makes sense now that because they haven't really been talking about making an app store really for like Android previously,
Mm-hmm.
but they had they could do it, but now I feel like now with the laws in EU, they have a reason to make one for both Android and iOS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that sort of unified ecosystem, no matter what platform you're on, hopefully you can download the Epic Games Store. However, if, of course, you're on Windows Phone, you're out a lot. Okay, but no. Yeah, so, of course, yeah, they're going to try and go for this unified ecosystem. And we'll see how that works for them. How many people will actually go for this app store and how many people will count themselves out and just download a different app. But of course, with stuff like Fortnite, there's a fan base for that stuff, and they will be willing to download an app off a website to get it. So I do see this being potentially successful. I mean, Epic must have some sort of gauge on the metrics when it comes to when they launched their app store on the when they launched the app store, not the app store, when they launched Epic, like the Fortnite game on their website. How many people actually downloaded that on Android and how many people stopped playing because of that? They, of course, will have gauges on that, and yeah, hopefully they can look at that data. Hopefully, for their business, they can look at that data and determine whether people would be willing to download this store. So, of course, there'll be people at Epic doing that. Yeah, that there's got to be an analytical aspect to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the next story here, guys. So, you can already see it here. The world's first global AI resolution unanimously adopted. Okay, sorry guys for that brief interruption there from somebody who will now subsequently, I'm gonna probably have to, yeah, so sorry about that, guys. We'll continue on like that didn't happen. Yes. Sorry about that. Now continuing on here. So we're talking about this United Nations resolution. So it appears to be non-binding here. So it does not actually. It is not enforced, of course. Even the UN doesn't really have the best track record for actually having their stuff enforced. Of course, that's not controversial. But of course, I won't really comment on the politics of this one because this isn't the channel for that. But yeah, I think this is interesting to see some AI regulation kind of being put to the UN here. What are your thoughts on this one, Piggis? I mean, it's interesting to see AI regulation coming to this supranational organization, I suppose. However, because it's non-binding, I do wonder how much effect it will really have. I mean, yeah, what are your thoughts?
I mean, haven't they like been talking about doing this for a long time now?
Yeah. Well, yeah, with all the AI hype, with all the AI news, they, of course, that they are going to get around to doing this. However, of course, this doesn't seem to have much effect on the industry in general. But we will, have to see how countries implement this resolution and whether certain countries implement it more than others, whether that gives certain countries an advantage in the AI space. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see how that pans out. Anyway, moving on along to the mobile news. So here's an iPhone story, or actually an Apple story in general. A fake AirPods Pro with an on-case OLED display shows that this Apple patent is actually, something that could actually be implemented. So this fake shows apparently what is possible when it comes to putting an OLED screen on a case for AirPods. I mean, of course, I think it would have to be a rather durable screen. I mean, people drop their AirPods case all the time. People, drop their AirPods, of course, probably more than their case. But, of course, it would have to be a durable screen. But it could be helpful. Of course, devices try and add screens where they can because it enables additional functionality. However, of course, if it is not actually sort of the the most elegant solution, Apple probably won't go for it. Although sometimes they violated that sort of principle, their sort of reputation for elegance with stuff that has been a bit unpopular, like the um, Magic Mouse, where you have to turn it over to charge it, and you have to, have it the other way up so you can't use it while it charges, or the Mac Pro, the so-called trash can Mac Pro. Yeah, of course they have had a few slip-ups when it comes to their brand reputation for elegance, that brand image. However, for the most part, they've managed to keep it up. For the most part, that has been the reputation of Apple. That's the reason why a lot of people buy their products, because it has that sort of prestige. And yeah, I think, of course, they'd have to be careful with something like this. However, I think an OLED display on an AirPods case could make the AirPods even more popular than they already are. Although I feel like they may have sort of um, captured most of the market that they could with their AirPods already. Any thoughts, Piggers? Okay, so let's
Right.
continue right along to an Android story. Some bad news for my former self. If I wanted, apparently you can no longer get Android 15. On Android 15, you can no longer use apps from Android Marshmallow. So this is bad news if you enjoyed these older apps, which only supported the older operating systems. So now apparently it will have to use a newer version of the SDK. Now I can see why Google have done this. I can see why Android have done this, because of course it's better for security if you don't allow these other Android older Android versions with the older SDKs, which don't have that those security features, and allow for some other lower level access which might not be the best for your privacy or security, and may allow people to exploit your phone. However, of course, some people might just want to install an app which is a bit older just so they can use this application, and for them, this is going to be really annoying. And yeah, overall, this is an inconvenience for users, and it does impede on user choice. And yeah, I used to use Marshmallow. It was a decent version of Android. I mean, it didn't improve too much from Lollipop. And yeah, that sort of era up into Oreo, not really that many improvements. Although Nougat did bring some nice features. Android 7 was quite nice, but yeah, it's sad to see this older version of the SDK no longer being supported. Do you have any thoughts, Piggers?
I mean, what I'd like to see them do instead, because like these apps could be something you want to use, right? So if they were adding like a setting, a warning, had a warning in the settings where you could enable this, I think would be a much better option instead of just disabling it for everyone.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. I think it would be better if you just gave a setting. You just said, you can use this older version. It might not be safe. It might not be totally secure. But you can take the risk if you take that choice. User choice is important. And yeah, that would be a much better way of handling things. However, this is not the route that Android has decided and Google has decided to go down. So yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, moving on to the next story. GitLab has officially announced that, yeah, they've removed Sue, a fork of the Nintendo Switch emulator Yuzu. So, of course, this is just DMCA policy. I mean, they can't really do much about it. No matter what their actual opinion is on the settlement, it is the legal settlement, so they cannot go against that while also keeping, good legal standing, I suppose. So, of course, if they don't want to break the law, then they will just have to comply, no matter what they actually think. So, this isn't really surprising, but this is, of course, bad news for the emulator community. Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, moving on, unless you have any thoughts, Piggers.
No.
Okay, so moving on to the ISP news here. So, here in the UK, there's some ISP news for the Scottish people. So if you live in Scotland, this is some news for broadband. So yeah, apparently they are now they might be rolling out some more gigabit. So we've heard a bit about this in previous weeks. However, apparently they have quietly revealed that they intend to publish the first official contract notice for the Project Gigabit Broadband rollout scheme in Scotland. So that is what the Scottish government are doing. And of course, this is big news for people living in rural Scotland who previously haven't had access to that many great speeds. So if you could get gigabit in rural Scotland, that would be a much needed improvement to infrastructure. And of course, a lot of Scots will like that. And yeah, I think it will definitely be good if you don't have to, live in the central belt just to be able to get gigabit broadband. I mean, yeah.
Hmm.
Apparently I didn't realize broadband is a reserved matter. So apparently Scotland cannot actually handle broadband technically. But they can make investments. So yeah, I'm surprised that broadband doesn't strike me as something that would be a reserved matter that the Scottish Parliament couldn't handle. But apparently it is something that's reserved for Westminster. That's interesting. But yeah, this is good news for Scottish people, I suppose.
Better internet for everyone. Yes.
Yes, that is always good news. Except for when they spend too much on it, then maybe it's not good news. That's politics. Anyway, moving on along here to a story I sort of half understand, sort of don't. OpenReach is apparently piloting an alternative UK analog phone line in May 2024. So, of course, they're trying to switch off the old PSTN phone lines and adopt an all IP solution. But apparently, they're now going for something called SOTAP for analog. So, single order transitional access product for analog. So, apparently, this is a way of them trying to migrate people over. However, I'm not exactly sure how this is different to the existing system, and whether this will just be phased out soon, or whether this will be a longer term solution. Of course, transitionally suggests it will be a short term thing. However, we can never really be sure with OpenReach and, yeah, what they'll actually do with this, because, yeah, we don't know what they'll do. Do you have any thoughts, Biggest, on this story? Bad news if you like the phone lines, or if you like, traditional copper wire, like calling people without the internet. Yeah,
I mean, the internet is the direction we're moving in. Wait.
yeah. I mean, if you want to use a modem, this is bad news, because timed signals don't work over voice over IP. So that's bad news for those people. Of course, if you want to do all sorts of stuff on phone lines, some of it isn't supported with this voice over IP. And of course, there's a problem to do with vulnerable people who can't actually access this voice over IP. They may not be able to. And there is also the other aspect of people who, are unable to, so basically people are unable to access it due to their Wi-Fi being out. So if your Wi-Fi's out, if your power's out, then you might not be able to use your landline phone, and that could be a real problem. Anyway, moving right along to the desktop news here. So, an unpatchable vulnerability in the Apple chip leaks secret encryption keys. So, of course, we've seen this time and time again, haven't we, with CPU architectures? I mean, we saw this with all sorts of exploits that came out for Intel chips, and now there's stuff coming out for these M1 and Apple series chips. So of course, it was only a matter of time until an exploit like this may come out into the wilderness, and now apparently this could take a major toll on performance due to it basically leaking some encryption keys, which could really hurt your security. So, do you have any thoughts on this, Pius? This is pretty bad. However, we've seen a lot of these sort of exploits with Intel chips and AMD chips. So, I don't know. you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was like Meltdown and other exploits which did similar things, and, it's always bad. However, that does happen a lot with CPU, kind of, with CPUs, I suppose.
Because I mean, there's still a lot of M1s used, right?
Yeah. For example,
Mm-hmm.
I'm on an M1 right now.
Great.
Yes. I know, fantastic, guys. You're listening to this from somebody who's using an M1 computer. So yeah, this computer is vulnerable. Whoops. Well, oh well. Anyway, let's move on to another desktop story. Qualcomm says that most Windows games should quote unquote just work on their unannounced laptops. So just work? Just work, guys? I don't think they will. Quite frankly, unless they've come up with some magic innovation overnight. Unless they're coming out with some software that we haven't seen before, which is really good with being a good compatibility layer. Yeah, we're not going to see overnight compatibility unless they've done something really amazing here, which I sort of doubt. Although, of course, Qualcomm could surprise me here, but I do doubt whether they'll be able to do ARM to x86 that easily. Do you have any thoughts, Piers? I mean, they're not
We've
really
seen.
on the software level, are they? As in, they're not on the sort of the lowest sort of they're not really on the level of Microsoft when it comes to being able to actually directly deal with Windows. They're sort of slightly outside as an OEM. However, they do have some access there, but it might hinder their ability to allow apps to make more compatibility layers. But yeah. What
I
do you
mean, it
think?
looks pretty interesting what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. But I doubt most apps will work overnight. But who knows?
No, but I think like it could possibly be support a lot of games already,
Yeah, yeah. But
but
yeah.
obviously not everything though.
Mm-hmm.
Far from it.
Yeah. I think
Mm,
most might be an
I
exaggeration.
think
Perhaps some
I
is
think
the
they're
word they
like
want. Go on.
over exaggerating about this.
Yeah, they want to catch the media, I suppose. They want to get people like me, I suppose, talking about it. I don't know. They want people having their eyes on this. They want people seeing these Qualcomm chips and saying, I could use that. This could be my next computer. And sure, it could. However, of course, they do want to put a bit of a exaggerated spin on this to get people excited, even if it turns out in the end only some apps work. It's better than some of the predecessors, I suppose, such as
Mm.
the Surface Pro X, which didn't have pretty much any support from most apps.
I think it will be more like Proton in like earlier stages.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
Because they also have big problems with anti-cheat.
Yeah, yeah, of course they will. But if you're not playing online games, then I suppose you're fine. But if you're a bit of a FPS player, if you really like to play online all the time, and you play lots of Valorant, then
Mm.
perhaps perhaps this might not be the best. Although maybe Qualcomm, with this being on Windows, maybe they'll be able to sort something out when it comes to anti-cheat. But I'm not totally sure. It's not a totally different platform. It's just a different architecture. It's not a
Yeah.
different operating system, I suppose. Anyway, moving on to the next story. Truth Social is going public. So I talked about when this actually, Truth Social actually was first launched. And of course, I'm not going to comment on the political aspect of things here, but this is going public. So, of course, this could earn the shareholders of this company a lot of money if they go public and it gets a good evaluation. This could earn Trump money, potentially to help him get out of some of his financial woes, which are currently going on, with all that money that he has to pay. So, yeah, I suppose that this will be interesting to see where True Social goes after it goes public. Yeah, potentially it might become slightly less Trump centered, given it will now have public shareholders. But who knows what is it going to come next to this platform, or whether it might become less of a free speech platform and more of a general one. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Do you have any thoughts, Pigus?
Uh,
I mean, what are your thoughts on Truth Social in general? I mean,
I mean, from what I can see of it, it does like not look like what Trump envisioned with it.
yeah,
It's more like his like view of truth.
yeah,
It
it,
should be called Trump Media, Trump Social.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it is very centered around him. It
Mm.
took a lot of Mastodon and like open source stuff, which sure, but they didn't open source it to start with. There was all that controversy. They eventually stepped up to the plate. They put out some of the code, and yeah, that's good from that standpoint. However, of course, if you just use a soapbox instance, you'll probably get a very similar experience. just with a different community. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, moving on to the next story here. Instagram has limited the political content you can see. However, apparently now you can change that setting. So apparently, a lot of people on Instagram, they're there to look at lifestyle stuff. They're there to look at other stuff. They're not there to look at politics. Of course, politics isn't always the most cheery subject. Isn't really the thing that many people, a lot of people aren't particularly interested in it, especially a lot of younger people who Instagram really targets. So I suppose this makes sense from a business standpoint, as well as the fact that Facebook and Meta have historically had a few controversies, such as Cambridge Analytica, where their politics kind of reach has potentially been called into question, and how they use advertisers' money. So, of course, they were taking money from these companies and also allowing people to do surveys and stuff like that, which, people allege could have been used to sort of influence elections and change public opinion. Now, of course, Meta want to move away from that image, and trying to move away from politics might be a good option for that. Do you have any thoughts, Piers, on this?
No.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good option for Meta. Potentially that could be good for their public image. But we'll just have to wait and see how that pans out, and whether people actually believe they'll step away from politics, or whether this is just a little thing just to try and convince people that they aren't getting involved in politics when they are. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I think this might be a definite thing now. It does make sense from a business standpoint. But you can, of course, toggle this off if you don't care for it. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and share. If you want to, of course. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And you can leave your comments in the live chat. Hopefully you guys have a great Easter. And yeah, you can check out my videos. I'll have a few up on the channel in a bit. You might be able to see a bit of a script, which I've got here. Yeah, I'm going to be publishing a review of a drink. So, watch out for that one. Don't worry, it's not
Is
that
it a
weird.
check?
No, it's not that one. It's not that one. It's a different drink. It's a coffee drink. Piggis, remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, don't worry, I'm not reviewing that one. Yeah, that one. Yeah, I'm reviewing a coffee drink, so you can watch that if you want. I will probably come out with some new shorts content soon. You can check out my TikTok if you want to. I might be putting some stuff out on there, alongside YouTube Shorts. Putting them out on both platforms. And yeah, if you don't want to use TikTok, that's your choice. But if you want to follow me follow me over there. I will be publishing some stuff. Yeah. Thank you again, guys, for watching. You can check out the Discord, sandrolitz.com/Discord. And, of course, my website is at the base domain there, sandrolitz.com. Thank you, guys, once again, and a goodbye. Would you like to say goodbye, Piggis?
Goodbye.
Okay. That is a wrap. And yeah. Silence.